Welcome to this, our Science is Weird open house. I don't even want to start this thing. My name is Brandon. I'm the founder of Science is Weird. I'm also the teacher of Science is Weird. We have a wonderful team that helps support me in the teaching and making of classes for all this. I may introduce a few of those people in a few minutes. The story of where this whole thing comes from, if you don't know, is that I have two kids. Both of my kids are, let me just say this without apology, very smart and very challenging kids. When they were in school, we had that consistent situation where they would come home and it was clear that they were not falling in love with the richness of reality. They were, at best, not getting in trouble on a daily basis. And I thought this was tragic, especially since I have been a teacher for a really long time and kind of an educational, I don't know if it's fair to say that I'm an educational researcher. I don't do anything with the quantitative aspects of research. I do all the qualitative stuff. And for, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 years now almost, I have been obsessed with a lot of things, but really one big thing, which is understanding how does learning really work when learning really works well. And I have made all of these discoveries, not of things that I've discovered for myself, but in reading what other people have come up with, I've come to understand that a better way of learning is really possible. And so, for the last dozen or something years, 15, whatever years, I have been just taking every weird opportunity I can to teach all of the weirdest stuff, and sometimes all of the weirdest people. Philosophy, psychology, sociology, math, lots of math, so much math, history, world religions, cooking, drawing, science. Yeah, a lot of science. The quest to make the world a better place, the psychology of why some people turn ridiculously evil, basic philosophical worldviews, moral economics, anthropology, things like that, into groups from high school down to kindergarten, up to college, down to preschool, middle schoolers, elementary schoolers. Anyway, my wife and I were teaching an elementary school classroom together when COVID hit, and I realized that when we had this 1 week off for the spring, that I was able to take the science stuff that I'd just been teaching remotely to my kids who were in our classroom and just offer a live class, put it up on Facebook. And it was packed and it was really exciting. And that is where Science is Weird has come from. And it's only grown since then. And now I have the joy of actually getting to teach my kids science through Science is Weird. And, a lot of other people around the world too. I get to help my kids and other people's kids fall in love with the richness that this thing that we call the real world. And it is incredibly, it's a flippin' honor to get to do it. And it's really enjoyable. What I'm going to do is talk about kind of the nuts and bolts of Science is Weird, and then I will take questions at the end of this. I think I'll keep the chat on. I hope it's on right now. I don't actually know that. I'll check in a minute. Go ahead and don't say anything right now unless it's asking a question, because I'll then at the end be able to flip through all those things and I won't have to get distracted by people's side conversations, which would be great because I have a propensity to get distracted with things. As you think about this and as you listen to this stuff, be prepared to ask whatever the hardest possible questions that you'd like. Don't worry about hurting my feelings. My job is just to give you as honest an appraisal as possible as to whether your kids would be a great fit for these lessons. Let's take that. Let's reverse that. That's a terrible way of putting that. Whether these classes may be wonderfully helpful for getting your kids to help fall in love more with the world and with learning about the world and living a life of meaning. Okay, so where do we want to start? Okay, let's just start with the whole thing that we have going on this next year, huh? I'm on the website. I'll be kind of giving you a tour of the website just so you can find even more information about some of these things. 2023 to 24. What's the core of Science is Weird is a once a week class. The classes are either an hour or an hour and a half long-ish. Every single lesson is a riddle, and I ask the riddle. And then by the end, the kids' job is to together figure out what the answer to the riddle is. And when I do my job right, the answer to the riddle is never just, some sort of boring answer, some sort of fact you could look up online. It's an insight. And when it's really, really good, it's a revelation. It just upends something profound about what you thought about the world. The goal of every lesson is to get you to never look at that aspect of the world the same way again. We do 5 weeks for every topic, and then we have a secret 6th week. I'll be saying more about that in a second. This next year, the 6 topics that we are doing are the universe, starting with physics, water, lungs, clouds, bacteria, and then finally snails. The way that this is built, I'll go here and I'll come back here later. Everything. The way that we see science is as, oh, you know what? Actually, I think I have an even better picture of that. Is as a tower. The real world, it turns out, and this is the sort of thing that took scientists even like past the beginning of the modern scientific revolution, hundreds of years to figure out that everything is made out of, I'm going to say atoms. That's not literally true, and we'll be talking about the massive exception, literally massive exception to that. In the universe is weird in a few weeks, but everything is around us at the very least is made, and that we can see is made out of atoms, and then those atoms build together to make molecules, which build together. If you're talking about living stuff, to make organs and things of that nature. If you're not talking about that, build together to make planets, moons, stars, that sort of thing. Yeah, and then organs and systems build together to make biological things. And then, you can also talk about how we make animals from that. It's weird that we actually treat this way, right? That we split off zoology from biology. We don't split anything off, I suppose is what I should say. We just make sure to provide a special space for zoology because, kids love animals. People love animals, and kids especially love animals. And so we go more into depth in animals and pull all of these sort of strings taut together. So every year, including this next one, is this sort of gradual building up, climbing up of the tower of science. There are 2 different types of courses that we teach. Versus. One of them are webinars, and the other one is seminars. I will take any questions at all about these, or you might just want to go to sciencesweird.com/versus if you are interested in that. Basically, the things that kids learn are essentially the same. The difference in here is the number of kids per class. In the webinars, it's a lot. We had, we averaged probably around 20 or 30 last year. It might be bigger this year. And with the seminars, we limit it to about 15 kids. Sometimes we have a few more kids than that, but sometimes fewer too. The seminars take everything that the webinars do and they make it what we call the seminars hyper interactive because that sounds cool and it really does it. We've had some very clever people who know what they're talking about actually describe our webinars as hyper interactive and our seminars is like double hyper interactive, but that is terrible, totally non-understandable branding. So the webinars are very interactive and the seminars are even more interactive. The webinars are basically what we're doing right now, where it is my face and then people chat things in, with maybe the exception that it's, I suppose in some ways, not at all like what we're doing right now, because we're not starting this with a riddle right now, which is what we do in our webinars. We are not, and I'm not taking, like 20 seconds or a minute to have you all chat in your answers, and then I respond to your answers and then take the class in a different direction. That's what we do in our webinars. In our seminars, the 15 or so small group Socratic seminars, a lot of S's there. We do all that, except instead of having people use the chat, hardly ever really, we have people communicate verbally when I call on them, and then even more frequently than that with this elaborate hand code that we have invented. If you've been in one of our seminars or one of our science bites before, you know how that goes. We designed this to, I don't know, right? Just like, this is embarrassing to say, personally, teaching is hard for me, right? When I was a classroom teacher, the thing that you do as a classroom teacher so much is you watch the kids do work, and you kind of have to go at the kids' pace. This is wonderful. Good classroom teachers do that so much. That was the part of classroom teaching that I'd have a terrible time with just because I couldn't control my own attention. This is a failing of me as a teacher. And so I've designed all of Science is Weird around these very intensive, very focused engagements, rat-a-tat-tat with the riddles of the world around us. That is what those things are for this. If you are, the prices for these are also very different. We are, because of this, we're able to offer, well, here, I'll talk about discounts in just a second. If you are interested in signing up to either of these, just anywhere on the website, including the upper right-hand corner of any of the pages, click Grab a Seat, and then what you will see are these three choices. So the seminars are, as I said, as are the live webinars, and then the recorded webinars. Well, when we do the webinars, we record them. No student faces or anything like that. And then we sell the recordings for that. If you do the recordings, you will every Wednesday evening get an email or some sort of update. We're looking to change our system this year, whereby you get the link to the recording to do anytime that you want. So sometimes I think people are confused when we say that we are a full curriculum because we just have 1 day a week that we meet for classes. Yeah. There's a reason for that, and that is right after you do the class, the lesson of the week, you will get a deep dive. Deep dives, let me arbitrarily choose 2. I have no idea which one this is. A deep dive are these PDFs that I make after teaching the class a few times to kind of work out the kinks in the class and figure out exactly what we're talking about. They have a whole bunch of stuff that is totally optional. I cannot emphasize this enough. Totally optional. And they're designed to take you and your kid and possibly your entire family deeper into the deeper beauties of the things that we are talking about here. So then we start with a bunch of YouTube videos, usually 3. They're usually pretty short. This year they might start getting longer. We've had some people ask for that, but again, it's all totally optional. And they usually extend some aspect of what we talked about in class and oftentimes go in a different direction. I choose these very, very carefully to be, first of all, interesting for students. There's so much on what is called SciTube, Science YouTube, that is unspeakably dreary, boring crap that is worth almost nobody's time, unless you really want to know this stuff. And if it's not showing you how awesome it is, I'm not entirely sure why you would, some of this stuff. I love all this stuff but I love it because it's wonderful. So many videos do not actually show the wonder. So all of these show the wonder. They are also from channels that virtually always are very good fact-wise, because obviously there's so much crap on YouTube that pretends to be about science. Every once in a while, I will share something from a channel that is not very good, and then we use that sort of as a learning experience. Those of you who were in Wind is Weird this last year know exactly what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh, that ended up being amazing, didn't that? And I don't know, usually I choose channels that don't have any swear words or anything like that. And when there's even any kind of loose swearing, I usually try to warn people ahead of time about that. It's because, I don't know, I don't want you to have awkward conversations with your kids unless you know what you're getting into. After that, we have the trivia. The trivia is just kind of a blow-by-blow repeat of the most important stuff that was learned in the lesson in a question and answer format. It's in the question and answer format. I picked a terrible one to show because this does not get to the deep. Here, let me even show. This ended up being a weird lesson. Here, this is great. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So many evolutionary ones. Blah, 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 blah. You know all this stuff. You probably know all this stuff. But then we get into the really cool stuff. It's designed in the question and answer format. So either you can quiz your kids on it, probably at the end of the lesson. They should be able to get almost all of this right. Now, maybe not, or whatever. But also, if you'd like, they can quiz you or quiz some other really smart adult in their lives, and they can see, man, I know a lot more about this than X smart person. After the trivia, we usually have 3 pages of that, we have what we call a lab. Usually it is a hands-on thing. This one was specifically done with with an app, a free or free-ish app, and then to play around with that to get a real sort of physical, oftentimes like bodily, emotional experience with the thing that we're talking about. I hate labs. The kinds of labs that usually people do in like high school science classes. I hate them. Usually they're just very much, here, follow these exact steps. And if you follow these exact steps, then you should get this exact answer, right? This is like what J.K. Rowling lampooned in her, what did Snape teach? The potions class, the potions master. Yeah, right? They're hard, they're terrible. They teach you so very little, so terribly often. When we do labs, we do them as real things when you are interacting with things in the real world, although in this situation, it was not just to touch all of your teeth, but to play around with here, I can actually show this one because I feel weird that I am not a dental pro. This is such a cool app. It's free or free-ish, and you can like zoom in, you can find out all these things, and this is actually a 3D scan of somebody's real teeth. Okay. I need to show that. I'm sorry. ADHD moment. Teeth are really cool, turns out. All these topics are picked because they are things that at first people tend to find boring, and then it turns out when you dive into them, they're incredibly interesting because it turns out that secretly everything is interesting. The labs that we do are actually hands-on, like things that give you an experience in the world that you will remember for a really long time afterwards. After that, we have a book recommendation. So, the world is full of crappy science books that should not ever have been written. Not even ones that are false, but ones that are dull. Why waste your life writing or reading dull science books? We choose ones that are either really beautiful or really insightful. Some of them are for little kids. Some of them are for adults, but can be read by, like a clever, thoughtful adolescent or pre-adolescent. And we share all of those. We've got a lot of questions about whether we are able to share all of the books that we do at the beginning of the year. The answer to that is no, definitely not, because we compose these lessons, from week to week to week. We have a pretty good sense as to where we're going for the next 6 years, even week to week to week, but, changes will definitely happen. We do, however, have 2 wonderful parents. If you're watching this, you know who you are, who have volunteered of themselves to keep book lists for Science is Weird, and I've been sharing my information, my guesses for what kind of books that we will be wanting to get based on ones we've talked before to them. So there will be opportunities to get the book lists of the ones that I will be recommending for a topic ahead of time. I'll also specifically be trying to push those out before each 5 or 6 week new topic for that. After this, the final, we have ciphers this last year. I think we're not going to do ciphers this year unless somebody steps up and really wants to do that. Oh, is this fun? Also very taxing for me to do. So we're skipping that this year, but a lot of kids really like this. One of the things that I'm most excited about, and we've been doing this for a year now, is that we take the most important insights, which is to say the most important of these, but even like the most important of these. And we put them into, have you heard of Anki cards before? Anki is the spaced repetition flashcard program, totally online or with an app. And it allows you, unlike every other kind of flashcard app, to have a ridiculously large set of flashcards that are put in that only get quizzed. They only get put to you when the app guesses using actual science, super darn proven science, based on something called the forgetting curve, when the app predicts that you are about to forget those facts. So you can have thousands and thousands of science facts in here, and you keep seeing the ones that you're about to forget. So it's always a little bit challenging. The beautiful thing that we are going to do as we go through the next 6 years is lock in all of the coolest, most amazing things. This is, again, totally optional. This is not, most kids don't want to do this, and that's perfectly fine. Most adults don't want to do this. That's perfectly fine. But for those of us who do, take everything that you learn and totally lock it into your long-term memory until you are dead. At only like the cost of 5 minutes-ish a day of quizzing at this thing for the next, for however long that you are in our program for. Sorry, it's just so exciting. I'm a massive Anki head, have been for like 15 or 16 years now. I have like 14,000 cards in my own deck, and I quiz them every day, and I love them. And this is what we're doing for kids because, my gosh, this could be done, right? And what the heck, why not do it? Let's talk about, oh gosh, I don't even know. People ask about what kind of materials you need for class. The basic answer for that is you just need to come yourself to a computer that has Zoom on it, or if you're watching the recording, just, has the ability to watch recordings on it, whatever that platform is on. We've been doing it on YouTube. We might switch to something fancier. And then you will need a notebook, a dotted notebook. Now, in the past, we have purchased dotted notebooks for everybody who signs up for our seminars. I think this year we are going to try to do them for everyone in the seminars and everyone in the webinars too. We've had some problems with Amazon. It turns out we were way the heck too generous for everybody who signed up for next year early last year. And we got them a choice of a book that they really liked, one of 4 really great science books. And because of that, because we were buying so many books and having them sent to people's houses, we tripped some sort of Amazon thing where Amazon thought that we were trying to be a secret bookstore, which breaks their rules of their terms of service, and like use them to kind of be our book, but to something I don't exactly know. It's not what we were doing. It's not what we were doing at all. But because of that, they have deleted or whatever our account. So we're trying, I don't know. I hate these flipping sort of like I'm stuck in paperwork sort of things. We're going to try to find probably another provider for this. But if we can't, then what we will be doing is asking you to get those notebooks, then trying to make it up to you in some sort of important way. Stay tuned on that. My apologies for the frankly massive irritation on that. But then come with a dotted notebook onto your computer at the proper time. And like a pencil, maybe some colored pencils, maybe some markers. One of the things, I think it's note books. Is it plural or is it singular? Dotted notebooks, very good. One of the things that we have students do is just make a notebook together in class. So here, these are some ones just from last year. From a number of the different topics last year. If they want, they can just do these in class. We always pause the class to have students draw stuff in through their notebooks. But then if they don't want to, or they can't move that fast or what have you, then they can do it afterwards. In the deep dives, you always have a link to what the final images were from each of the quick draws that we did inside of the lesson, including all of the riddles and insights too are part of it. Okay, how tired are you yet? I'm getting there. This is just a giant vomit spew of information. Let's talk about the Philosophers Club. So I have said that the deep dives themselves are optional. And the word I used was optional, and that's totally correct. But once upon a time, we found that if we offered some sort of, what's the phrase, incentive for students who love science and love figuring things out and learning about things, if we offered some sort of incentive for them to do the deep dives, then they did the deep dives a lot more. And I thought this is really cool. Thus was born our secret lessons. So the way this works is that we have, coming up in the next years, 5 ordinary lessons, 5 weeks in a row, once a week. And then we have this week that is off. That is our secret 6th week. It is the week of our Philosophers Club. If you go to sciencesweird.com/philosophers, not philosophy, but philosophers, if your kid just really needs more science, first of all, they'll probably want to be doing the deep dives. If they do the deep dives, right here it says parts 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're probably going to rejigger that a little bit for next year. It will involve keeping their own version of the notebooks, because I want to incentivize actually doing the drawings in the notebooks, because whether they do that live or after the fact, because my gosh, how cool would it be to have 6 years of packed notebooks that like 250 pages each, that you yourself have drawn things in and made potentially even look elegant or gorgeous the way that you define elegant or gorgeous. and be able to just like pick up and like flip through and find everything that you've learned over the total of 6 years. Or however many years that you're in this, because my gosh, that'd just be so cool. So we want to incentivize that. So if the students, for students who do the deep dives, at least certain portions of the deep dives, not the Anki part, not the spaced repetition note cards, that's not going to be a necessary part of it. And take a scary test. I sent out this test after each, after the fifth and final week of our ordinary sort of span for each topic. If they do it, there, by the way, will be answer keys this year. We have not done that in the past, but we do commit to doing those this year. Then there will be a 60-minute secret lesson at most of the class times. We are not doing it for, Tuesday mornings, but we're doing them for the rest of the times. If kids want to come to those. Yeah, and they get to go even deeper in something that's really, really cool. We have the dates all on here. I really like Mario Kart. There. I said it. If they're in the Philosophers Club, not only did they get access to the secret 6th lesson, but also to this round of Mario Kart that we played together. Last year we did it twice. This year we're just doing it once, but there you go. It's on there. We also have, ignore the word brain bowl. I was supposed to take that off of there. But the Kahoot quizzes. So we have 2 students, Yellow Jaguar and Blue Panda are their code names. Oh, everybody in the seminar has code names. Isn't that cool? I think it's cool. I think the kids kind of do too. Gives them kind of a chance to stay really anonymous, which I'm kind of which is a value of mine. But also to sort of self-define, right? Like if you have to choose a certain color and a certain animal, like what color do you choose? What animal do you choose, right? Adolescents need to self-define more. What these 2 particular wonderful students do is they make a Kahoot quiz on the things that were in the deep dive. They did it based on the videos last year. We'll see what they're doing this year. Probably also involving things that come from former lessons this year, which gives kids a reason if they want to do the memory cards. They do that live. We haven't yet picked the times for that, but that'll be up soon. We talk about why philosophers, we use that word in here. Yeah, so that is the Philosophers Club aspect of this. People ask, well, I don't know. Of course, people ask about the money aspect of this. So the prices are just on the website. If you go to grab a seat, you will see them $175 every month USD for 9 months for the seminar, $45 for the live webinar, $40 for the recorded webinar. However, look, we are able to, I'm delighted that we are in the position as a company, we are able to give help to people who need it. Basically, we want to get the science into, the arms of everybody in the world if we can. Places that you might start with looking online to help you with this. First of all, there is it is more and more common, as homeschooling in particular becomes more and more common, to have states or charter schools pay for online classes for people, or local classes, or whatever. To do that, you have to become what is sometimes referred to as an approved vendor. This usually involves a lot of paperwork, a lot more paperwork than we are able to do. We'd love to be, thumbed up for all of these things. The system that we have found that works the best is that we would like to pay you money if you can do this for us. We figure that it'll be then easier for us to make that money up by getting more people or whatever, but we really hate doing this. It's a major bottleneck. My wife is in charge of this, and we have before I said I had 2 kids. And that's true. I do have 2 kids, but I also have another kid. I have no idea yet if she is a difficult child. Frankly, she might be the easiest of our kids thus far, but isn't that a flippin' fantastic kids? Okay, sorry. I can hold back. How did I get talking about that? My wife, Kristen, is in charge of filling out used to be in charge of filling out the vendor stuff with our new daughter, Nora. That is like way too much for her to be able to do. So we will pay you to do that for us. If you go to sciencesweird.com/vendor, you can find information on that. But if that is not a thing, I should say as part of that some programs require that for us to qualify, I, the teacher, need to be a licensed teacher. I am not a licensed teacher. I've never been a licensed teacher. I've run my entire career by finding just the weirdest little teaching opportunities because, I don't know, I have a hard time working inside of other people's big systems, personal failing. So if that is what the system requires, it doesn't work for us. But otherwise, we would love to help you make that work. If that is not a thing that you are interested in, we have a couple other options. If you go to, let me go. Oh, it's not on the bottom, is it? Sciencesweird.com. Actually, if you go to our homepage and you go to the bottom of that homepage, here we go. We have this fun little map that shows various places that people who have signed up for us are. If you then scroll beneath that and look at click on the All 65 Challenge, you will find, there's that map again, you will find that we have this weird thing that we do where if you are in a Canadian province or U.S. state or territories for both, that we do not have anyone in yet, we would love to give you a free recorded webinar subscription for a year. I think we have somebody in Connecticut now. I should cross that off. And I feel like maybe Newfoundland. No, I think Newfoundland is still good. Okay. You can be the first, and you can use this code that's printed there, and you will get the recorded webinar, though not the live webinar or the seminars, for free for the next year for that. Beyond that, we recently had somebody from South Africa say that she was interested in signing up, but said, boy, in South Africa, it's rare for people to have the kind of money that people have in Canada and the United States. Is it possible to have just some sort of discount for this? And we thought, yeah, you know what? It totally is possible. So this thing that I'm kind of excited about is making specific discounts for anybody who is in a specific country, for various other countries. And the way that we're doing this is, have you heard of the Big Mac Index before? When I taught economics to high schoolers, I remembered this thing called the Big Mac Index, which is a shorthand that economists have to think about the customer purchasing power in a cutesy but still really useful way. So the question is just how much does McDonald's in various countries charge for a Big Mac? McDonald's puts a lot of work into figuring out how much money should they charge. And if they charge the same amount in Switzerland as in South Africa, they wouldn't make any money in Switzerland, or they wouldn't make any money in South Africa because nobody would be able to buy them. So what we do is if you are in Russia, for example, right, we'd take what is the ratio of how much a Big Mac costs in the U.S. versus Russia, and we would discount you the price of the recorded webinars. That's the only one that we're able to do this for, and give it to you for that. If you are in a country, if you were in another country, feel free. That's not the U.S. or Canada. Feel free to contact us, and we can do that. And I promise that if you are in a country that is more expensive than the United States for this, we won't charge you any extra. If none of that applies to you, but you'd still like a discount, please send us an email. You can do that at the email. I think it is an email in the end. You can go to you can just go to About Us. Where is that? Oh, here we go. Site stuff. And then click on the Write Us, and then just ask Angela for this. Explain their situation, right? You don't need to lie. We'll work with Angela. Will work with you to figure out something that really works wonderfully. Okay. I need to drink some tea. Just 1 second. Oh. Thankfully, this is the thing that I most enjoy talking about. Unthankfully, my goodness, this is a lot to talk about. I should make a note. I promised as part of this that we would also talk about our close reading classes. Our close reading, I don't want to take the time to spend too much about this. We're going to have another open house specifically talking about those on the 14th of September. An email will be going out about that. If you don't get our emails already, go ahead to the, stream a free lesson, or go to the Stay in the Loop page right here. Fill this out and you will get the weekly, once every other week, only when we have like 5 new exciting things to announce. Do I ever get around to writing them? But you'll get an email that keeps you abreast of exactly what's going on. But the shorthand of this, if you go to Who Are We, and then instead of science classes, you can see a lot of the stuff that we talk about in science. We are talking about right now on the science class part of this. But also, if you go to the close reading, I have this whole background in teaching SAT prep. And when I did, it's the standardized test I get into colleges, an ACT prep. When I did that to, millionaires and the occasional billionaire, I had to work out really effective, really enjoyable ways of learning to read faster, better. And I'm really proud of some of the stuff that I came up with for that. So if you are interested in learning more about that, go to sciencesweird.com/close-reading, and you will get to this. And you can read about our reading comics and our arguing comics pages. This year we are moving the day of those from Wednesdays to Thursdays because I have jujitsu on Wednesdays. Speaking of which, I have it this evening. I should be doing some stretching in a little bit. But stay tuned for more about that. Okay. What we have just talked about are the nuts and bolts of what we do. I now want to talk about stuff that I'm really excited about, which is how we are changing what we do this coming year and will do for the next 6 years, which will be sort of the 6 last years of Science is Weird as we currently envision it. After that, the Science is Weird classes that we do will be downloadable, but as recorded things, but we'll probably no longer be doing live lessons, at least not toward any things that we're talking about. I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? If you go to sciencesweird.com/everything, there's that picture again. We are making something that almost doesn't exist at all in the world, and that I just felt like it has to exist. This has to exist because it can be done. And if it were done for those people who used even a large portion of it, even half of it, it would be one of the greatest things that anyone had access to, I think, in learning. No one's doing it. Virtually no one is doing it. And that is to say, to do a science class that is multi-year where everything connects to everything. Because this is the reality of the world, right? If you want to understand chemistry, if you want to understand, the chemistry of plastic, right? Like, you can't just understand molecules. In order to really understand what's going on, you need to understand where those molecules came from. Well, which is to say, like a dying star, right? This, going supernova. But even in the middle term, right? Like, they were in plants. They were in plants in the Carboniferous period, before possibly the evolution of mold that was able to break down the lignin or whatever that is in wood. Jury's out, actually, and it's exactly why in the Carboniferous period. This is before the dinosaurs. We had, do we have anything in the Carboniferous here? I think these were Permian, not Carboniferous. This is even before Dimetrodon, which itself was before the dinosaurs. You had all of this wood just kind of building up. That wood in these swamps, they got buried. They didn't rot because the mold didn't exist. They didn't rot. They got buried, and then they got squished together, and that is where oil comes from. Oil is where we get our plastic. That hurt my fingernail. Where we get our plastic from, right? This is made out of dead trees that existed before this animal even evolved. Oh my gosh, this is so, right? In order to understand, like, why is that the color that it is or whatever, you need to understand the physics of light. In order to understand, like, that Dimetrodon, you need to understand the evolution of what is that? It's a sauropsid, not a synapsid. I feel like I'm getting that wrong. Yeah, it's a synapsid, not a sauropsid. There we go. The synapsids are our kind of line of descent, and the sauropsids are the dinosaurs and crocodiles line of descent. Blah, 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 blah. What am I trying to say? In order to understand one thing, you have to actually understand it, you actually need to understand more than a little bit of everything. Most science classes, that was an intensely ADHD moment that I just had right there. Sorry, I just, right, like getting started and talking about how cool plastic is, just couldn't stop myself. We even ended up with mold there, like microbiology. I was kind of proud of myself. Okay. If anyone wants to stick around afterwards, we can play a game where we can talk about like you can pick anything. And then like we can talk about, okay, like why, to really understand that. How do you need to understand biology? How do you need to understand anatomy? How do you need to understand physics and earth science and zoology and chemistry? Okay, let's pause on that. Most science classes, oh my goodness. What they do is they are a year long, and in that year, like you learn some things. Now, frankly, a lot of science classes, when you get into middle school and high school, they're, what's the word? They're not interdisciplinary. They're disciplinary is the word. They're disciplines. They're one subject, so you get like earth science, or you get chemistry or something like that. And then, like the next year, it's not really assumed that you remember any of the things that you learned the year before. This is just kind of tying the hands of science classes everywhere. This is making it so it's really hard to get a big picture understanding of life, the universe, and everything. So what we do is this interdisciplinary sort of thing, right? Every year we talk about all of these topics, and then we're connecting them together such that when we are talking about fire, year 2, chemistry, the second lesson that we talked about, we'll also be talking, of course, about the light stuff that we've just learned about, but also be talking about lungs. It's not obvious as to why I would be talking about lungs. When we're talking about fire, stay tuned for them. When we talk about eyes, we'll be talking about light, and we'll also be talking about lungs. If we talk about, when we talk about mushrooms, that's year 5 in biology. Somehow this feels like Jeopardy. When we talk about mushrooms, we'll be talking definitely about hills and talking about dirt. Oh my gosh, talking so much about dirt. But also talking about apples and also talking about onions, because both of these things are things that grow in the dirt. Evolution, year 3, at the end of year 3, is going to be this major sort of turning point in this. We're talking a lot about evolution before that class. That class is our advanced evolutionary theory class. It's really kind of big, but then that prepares us to talk in a much deeper way about every organism that comes after that. We're talking about that in mushrooms, and, a whole bunch of other things besides. Actually, nuclear power touches on mushrooms a little bit too. This allows us to have these Easter eggs that are going to be in some of the early really in all the classes, that will only hatch. That's not the metaphor. You find, these little clues asking questions in early years that will only come to fruition years later. This is such a big deal. This is totally limiting, by the way. Like when I came up with this idea, our business advisor, a good friend of mine from college, who has a degree in master's in economics, it's like, no, don't do this thing. No, like this will make it so much harder for people to sign up for your courses, right? Because they'll already have to and then it's just like, and I'm like, no, this must be done, because if it were done, it would be so amazing. This is, to the best of my knowledge, only been done once before, at least in homeschooling science curricula. And that is, and I just want to call this out because it's such a great idea. I didn't want the reviews from that. I wanted instead, here, let's just look up the Building the Foundations of Scientific Understanding. This is the only other course that I know that does anything like this. It's a lot harder to use, I am told, than ours is. It is not as interesting, right? We put interest and emotions at the center of everything as ours is, but whatever, right? Like if it's just conceptual understanding that you're going for, I recommend this. Apparently, there is a new thing that tries to take that and make that easier to use. This is built Scientific Connections Through Inquiry. Just wanted to call attention to this because it seems to maybe be great. I don't know. And I wanted to call out potentially other great curricula for people. What am I even talking about right here? Yeah, this! I'm so excited about this! So some people have been asking, hey, Brandon, we have been part of Science is Weird for like a couple years now. Is this still going to work for us? The answer for you is yes, absolutely. I have taught almost all of these topics before. A couple are new. Snails, soap, guts, toasters. aliens. Maybe I'm missing one right there. Oh, in the universe. I've kind of taught the universe before. I did galaxies. This is sort of branching off of that, but going much cooler. Most of the ones, if you've only been in the last couple of years, most of the ones we taught in the last couple of years are kind of up here. So you probably have not done these, potentially any of these before. Okay, so then this is still for you. Got some other emails from people saying, Brandon, we have been with you since literally the first month of this. Hi, Amanda. You're so wonderful. My apologies that I haven't gotten back to you in that email. Got swamped with emails recently. Oh my God, kind of leading up to this actually. Look for an actual email shortly, hopefully. If you've been with us from the very beginning, totally your choice for this. I will say that one, when we started off, right, like the very first class that I ever did online was water is weird. That was that one that kicked off the whole business. And then lungs and then clouds, right? Those are literally our first three. Bacteria was that first part of that same summer. Fire was part of that same summer. Boy, am I better at this now. The amount of scientific material that was in those courses is approximately a third of what we do now. So the classes will be substantially new to your kids if you've been in even since the very beginning of this. Now, that said, I am so afraid of anybody taking our classes and not absolutely loving our classes that we have what we refer to as our ridiculous guarantee. Guarantee. There we go. Guarantee. Very good. Our normal way of phrasing this is if in your first 6-week science topic, I should update to the 5 weeks now, your student doesn't both learn more science than they did all last year and have more fun than they've ever had in a science class before, you'll get all your money for that topic back, no questions asked. This happens sometimes. We're happy to do it. If you have been in class, one of the topics that we've done before, first of all, you might want to do the webinar for that topic if you're not ordinarily in the webinar, just because that might make it, I don't know, like cheaper for you or whatever. You can always watch it double speed if that's your thing. My son does that. So you might want to do that. But then if you're like, I'm going to tell you the truth, Brandon, my kid, they knew most of this already because they had been in your wonderful class before. Wonderful. We will start with just refunding half of your money for that topic. And then if you feel like you want more for that particular topic, but you still want to stay in our good graces and come back and whatever, we won't be angry at you. I just want to make sure that we are more than fair in everything that we do. So please take advantage of that. Oh, okay. Let's talk about standards. As we are rebooting everything that we do for these 6 years, I flipping hate the next generation science standards. Can I say that? I just hate them. I hate them. I think that they're boring. I think that they're soulless. I understand that they go to standards. I understand that they have a role to play in the world and they should not be destroyed. But I hate them. We have gone through all of the topics that we teach and figured out how the things that we teach, the specific lesson plans. I wrote out the lesson plans, the brief lesson plans for all of the 180 lessons that we are going to do, and guessed at the snails and guessed at the ones that we haven't done yet. We went through, and thank you to the parent who helped us so much make this. You know who you are. We've gone through to align these with the next generation science standards, or at the very least the content part of this. We're already doing the other aspects of the next generation science standards, with the exception of the performance expectations, which frankly, virtually nobody ever does. We actually have a lead as to how we might be some of the few people who could pull off those, and more will be announced about that in the future. It requires kids to kind of take on their own projects with this and be really sort of use the freedom that is really easy for us to grant them with this. But that's a future potential sort of thing. Just know that. One of the reasons I hate these is because when you look at how they break up, I don't know, motion, stability, forces, interactions, if you look at the sub points of that, oh my gosh, I understand where they're coming from. I understand how they think that those are some of the most important things. but they're a terrible way of just kind of like breaking reality apart at the joints to understand this. If you really want to understand the things that we are teaching and see the seriousness that we take this, click all the concepts, sciencesweird.com/concepts. We have listed out, by going through these 180 lesson plans, the various things that we'll be teaching. These concepts will keep coming up again and again. It's not like we have a lesson on the elements. How stupid could that possibly be? It's that by the end of it, they will have worked with the elements and understand why the table is the way that it is, blah, 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 blah. They'll work with it so many times. Big things. Gushy things. I'm really excited about, well, here, I'll pause on that for a second. We do a lot with life. I like life. And then human things. The last stuff on this is particularly interesting. Well, here, and let me show why. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I need to update this. The philosophical questions. Okay, so if you go to Philosophy 2, sciencesweird.com/philosophy. I hate the narrowness of the way that science is usually taught. I mean, kind of everybody does. This is why I was not interested in science when I was in middle or high school. I really thought it was boring. It was the one topic that I really didn't talk about at all. Science began as part of philosophy, as part of the way of making sense of everything. So we've gone through all of the concepts and all the lessons again to write down what are the questions that we will be asking again and again through these 6 years, these 180 lessons. And these are some of them. I am so proud of this, right? Are there things with the universe that science can never tell us? This is outside of the realm of science. This isn't the philosophy of science. I'm so proud that we will talking quite a lot about that. What makes things alive? Is it electricity? Is it some sort of élan vital, some quintessence, some sort of qualia, some sort of magic pixie dust, right? It has an answer to that. We'll be talking about that. It's not simple, actually. But what is consciousness? I am always into both the quote-unquote easy and the quote-unquote hard problem of consciousness. Reading 2, possibly 3 books, arguably, about the topic right now, even. We'll be talking quite a lot about consciousness and how we make sense of consciousness with science. And then these ones. Now, that first thing there, how can we live responsibly on Earth? Or maybe even, I don't know, actually, I guess all of these together. It's really common when I talk to high school students in specific to see, I find so many of them are just doomers about everything. They think that we're doomed. They think that we are 99.9% doomed. And, some of them even more extreme, that like they will die in agony, as will everyone else, because of various environmental problems. Okay, so then of course we meet people who are like, nope, everything's fine, or we have some small problems, but we don't need to worry about those very much. Let me just tell you that neither of those positions is in any way the consensus in the scientific community. As a science teacher who takes seriously like the role of, like the shaping of people, I find it very important that we address these things head on. And that because this is an incredibly controversial, politically, subculturally sort of thing, it is incredibly important that we not just like give the real answers that science gives on these things, and the lack of answers when science actually lacks answers on these things, or there's disagreement inside of the field, but that we also use this as an opportunity to look at how can you get to understand what is probably true when there's a lot of controversy over a thing, which is to say, how do you get beyond fake news? And note that fake news can come from the scientific community too. This is the question of rationalism. How do you actually get a true understanding of the world insofar as anyone is able to come with a true understanding of the world? You might think that, well, you have to be a PhD in all the sciences at once to do that. No, I mean, maybe for some things, conceivably, and there are surely some things that nobody knows and whatever. But there really are some practices that when one performs them habitually, become a habit, become part of one's character, and really can help you routinely get to the bottom of things that other people really disagree about. Sometimes one side is right. Sometimes the other side is right. Sometimes both sides are totally wrong. Sometimes it's some sort of combination of the two. Sometimes it's some third thing, and sometimes we really just don't know. We're going to use the whole nest of questions of environmentalism again and again as an opportunity, as an excuse to practice learning these skills. I think this is really exciting. Okay. There have been questions about age spans. If you go to sciencesweird.com/ages, you will find that we have not actually written that web page yet. But if you go to sciencesweird.com/ is it times? No, it's class times. Wait, it's not that either, is it? No. If you go to, no, it's just regular times. There we go. Good for me for making it short. I've been trying to do that lately. If you go for when our classes meet, you will see, and you can find this in a couple other places too across the website. You can see what the ages are for each of these things. The webinars are kids of all ages. If you want to do the recorded webinars, you don't even need to be a kid, right? You can just get the recorded webinars, and that's perfectly fine. The live seminars are more restricted as to their ages. Most of them are 10 to 15. We have one that is for younger kids on Tuesday mornings. I like to do that one after having gotten a couple other ones out of the way to just kind of make sure that I can state things as simply as possible for these. That's that. We are also expressly this year open to high schoolers. So there's a couple of things that I want to say with this. One of them is that somebody has said, oh, like, do you do high school credit for this? Well, first of all, we don't do any kind of credit at all. We are not an accredited institution. So much paperwork and whatever, right? We work mostly with homeschoolers and with people who kids just want to learn a heck of a lot of science, and that's a value in their family. Accreditation is necessary for neither of those, so we will probably never be an accredited thing. We're not an official school, so yeah, probably not. Never say never, but when it comes to high school stuff, though, we've only said that we are doing high school stuff when we have made it clear that, yes, in fact, we can ethically say this. Your high school age kid can take our classes and get a full or better high school science curriculum from it. A few aspects of that. One of them is content. Now, content-wise, frankly, we are at least at a high school level with everything that we do. Most of the things that we do are either at an advanced high school level conceptually, or more typically like a 100 level survey undergraduate college level with these sorts of topics. Sometimes we like to say a 200 level if you know what those are, but you can ignore that right now. That is a thing that we are really, really good at. There are a few things inside of the high school science curriculum that's not necessarily part of the next generation science standards or whatever, but that everyone just kind of expects to have there, like actual physical labs or balancing equations or vectors, computing vectors and things like that. I like to think of a cannon shoots a cannonball at a certain thing. Where is it going to land? Who's it going to crush, right? That kind of mathy stuff, we're never going to be good at. I don't find it that interesting. We focus on the conceptual stuff. What we are doing in situations like that is giving add-ons, pointing you toward things on Khan Academy, specific lessons on Khan Academy, or a couple other different programs that do a quite good job of nailing exactly that. So if you want to do those, take us for high school credit, just do those extra sort of modules and you will be good. Anything else I want to say about that? I feel like there are, and if anyone wants to ask any questions afterwards, feel free to do that. Okay, so I need to say we are now at the hour. We have now been doing this for a bit over an hour. Two things. One, we're still not done yet. we're actually pretty close to being done. So good for me. Not as over as I sometimes go. 2, I promised that we would do if you don't know what I'm talking about right here, don't worry about it. The saber-tooth tiger raffle drawing was supposed to be done at this moment. For those of you who have purchased raffle tickets for that, and the rest of you will be finding out about this shortly, we are extending the purchase period for that by a week for reasons, kind of exciting reasons, frankly, but for reasons. So look for that to be done in a week for that. But also want to say, sometimes people ask us, what the heck? This seems too good to be true. How can it be that you are saying that you are teaching high school students, but you are also teaching like elementary school students? How can you teach both of those ages at once? 2 major reasons for that. First of all, we teach the fundamentals of science because of historical reasons, the way that in the Western world, which is to say all of the world when it comes to education, because all the world's education is basically the Western model with some sort of changes, some sort of tweaks to it. The way that we compose the science curriculum is to hold back on the fundamental ideas until, high school, college, sometimes middle school. We don't do that. We don't think you need to do that. There is a way of teaching whereby you can do the very corest, biggest, basest, most important things, atoms and subatomic particles and deep time and things of that nature, at the very beginning. And you can teach them in such a way that even little kids can make sense of these things easily, and college students can make sense of easily. I'll say that, like, I've taught college classes before, and I have taught preschoolers before. And though there are important differences between teaching both of those ages of people, I will say that when I teach both of those ages of people, I fundamentally teach in the same sorts of ways. If you are interested in learning what these ways are, we have built our learning, is that right? We've built everything that we do on the framework of a guy named Kieran Egan, a Canadian educational theorist who I think is one of the most important thinkers who's ever lived. There, I will put my cards on the table. We build what we do on what he has come up with. This is how we achieve such profound and simple understandings of such high-level things. Feel free to read more there. If you're more interested in, I'll just say that what this allows us to do is start with the idea that the things that kids are learning should feel like they matter to kids. That this is the core thing that people get wrong in elementary school and in high school and in college and in preschool and in everything. Egan's tools allow us to trigger this feeling of meaning among everybody, which then brings their emotions on board, which then allows us to have some really fun conversations about some otherwise really hard things. If you're interested in finding out more about Egan, we have a page, sciencesweird.com/Egan, which talks about this. He died last year. Science is Weird sort of exists. I mean, it totally exists in order because of the work that he did. We wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be anything if it wasn't for him. We sort of exist as a way of spreading his vision of education. Sorry. God. Sorry. Okay. One of the other things that we are doing starting in this next year that is going to extend all 6 years are our orienting tools. You can spend some time looking at these. To understand the world, you need to understand where the various things in the world are. We're going to be bringing in custom-made Cetera maps such that even by the end of the first year, your kid will know more geography than most American adults know. It turns out that is a very low hurdle to clear, but by the end of the second and third years, you'll know more than probably a lot of educated adults know. By the end of the 6 years, they'll know a lot. They'll know a lot. And we'll be bringing it in. It's not just memorizing maps. It's some other things too, right? Like if you go out at night and you look at the stars, how do you really see the Milky Way galaxy? How do you really understand your place in that? In the Universe is Weird, which starts in a month, we will be hitting a lot of that. Big history timelines. It's really important that you understand, to understand science or anything, when things were discovered and when things actually happened. So we are making these big history timelines, actually. Here's a picture of them at the beginning. We are working right now into exactly how these will look, but the top one, every mark will be a billion years. On the bottom one, every mark will be 20 years or something like that. Talking about modern history, the ones in the middle are in the middle. So we have the story of the universe, the story of multicellular life will be the second one. The story of, human history, I think, even including prehistory. I forget how far back we go with that one. And then the last couple hundred years is the last one, which allows us to zoom in on the discoveries for that. So, if you've known a lot of homeschoolers, you've known a lot of people who have timelines in their living rooms, and we will be working in that proud tradition. I think that's actually all the prepared remarks that I have about this. I don't think doesn't strike me as obvious that I'm forgetting anything right now. All right, I'm going to do the scary thing. I'm going to turn on the chat. If it wasn't on before, and I don't even know. How embarrassing. Go ahead, throw in the scariest, most in-your-face questions that you can possibly think of. Ask about my teaching credentials. Ask about my background in science, right? Whatever you want to do, go for it right now. At the very least, let's pledge to make this interesting. And if that's all that you are interested in seeing, thank you very much for coming to this. It's been a delight having you. Well, people write in their questions. I should learn to juggle. Why have I not learned to juggle before? Are there things that you just haven't done that that if you just did them once, you'd be able to do those things for the rest of your lives? Or unless your life singular, unless you have multiple, whatever. Juggling is that thing for me. Just constantly I'm kicking myself that I've never actually just gotten around to juggle. I've tried it a few times, for 5 minutes, Turns out for me, that is not a sufficient amount of time to actually pull that off. Let me ask myself some awkward questions while people chat things in. What is my background in science? So I come to science as an outsider. I remember once hearing about somebody sharing our program with somebody, and they said that person that they're sharing with saying, somewhat indignantly, I would never send my child to a place that didn't have someone with at least a bachelor's degree in science, a science teaching place. I totally get that. That makes perfect sense. You want to make sure that the science that your kids are learning is really good science. So here are the things that you should know. First of all, this is something that I worry a lot about. And so when we first started Science is Weird, it was just me and doing a lot of Wikipedia. Also, here, let me just say this. I have 2 bachelor's degrees. One is in world religions from Arizona State University, and the other one is in history from ASU. Arizona State University, underappreciated honors college, one of the 5 best honors colleges in the nation. Really fantastic education. If anybody just is looking for a place to think about going for their kids, sending them where they get a really well-rounded, intellectually serious education, ASU's honors college is a fantastic choice. I actively avoided taking science classes when I was in high school and college because it was narrow. It was so boring. And after I graduated, I was just so excited that, I had all this free time. And what did I do? I started reading tons of books of science. And, so all the books that are behind me right now are all science books. And I have many more, let's say the social science books that I have, or the cognitive psychology or whatever books that I have too, or all the dinosaur books that I have, frankly. So I have been a science nut since graduating college. And so I was kind of relying on like the big pictures and big ideas and most exciting things that I had learned in all of that. When we started off, Science is Weird. And then I think I've been doing Science is Weird for a bit more than 3 years now. It was like 2 years ago-ish that we hired Amy. So if we go to Who Are We? About Us. Secret Origin, Frequently Asked Questions, Approach to Science. Aha, our team. We are lucky to have a friend of Kristen and mine's from college, Amy, who is just, you know how in college, like there's like that handful of people who are just like the smartest people that you've ever met. Amy is that person for us, for my wife and I. And so she has become our official science advisor. She is I forget the journal that she was published in. She actually has a real science education. And now before anything is told to the kids, it goes through Amy first. And Amy and I have a very deep conversation about what it is exactly that we should be telling kids. And okay, like there are these scientific ideas and they are accepted, but like still like they're not totally proven, right? Like how do we represent the likelihood that that is true? We take the question of scientific accuracy incredibly seriously. And she is the key that we have to that. So otherwise, frankly, I find that it is very helpful that I don't have an actual background in the sciences. There's this thing, Steven Pinker pointed to this, gave it this name, the curse of knowledge, where for anybody who's in a real discipline, they are used to the most important ideas of their discipline. They don't think about them anymore. They just think with them. And so it becomes weird for them, hard for them to actually get inside of the minds of people who don't understand the most important ideas. When it comes to science, remember what it is like to have been an idiot when it comes to science. When I was in college, I still thought that atoms were just balls. I remember the day in the philosophy seminar that I discovered that atoms were not literally just balls. I embarrassed myself in that philosophy seminar. And because of that, because I kind of come to this as a recent idiot, it is actually easier for me to come up with a lot of these things than I otherwise would be, to teach a lot of these things, especially the real fundamentals than I otherwise would be able to do. All right, now we have a lot of questions. Thank you very much. Do you have a favorite history curriculum or class that you recommend that is similar to your way of teaching or goes well with Science is Weird? I don't. That's a fantastic question. I wish I did. I used to teach history classes. I like teaching history classes. Let me just spitball a couple things for you. So this isn't classes, right? This is just a couple of books. Amazon. So Larry Gonick. And this does actually dovetail pretty well to what we are doing, I suppose. Larry Gonick is I think MIT professor, engineering professor, who's just a total polymath. Just does everything. And he has these, some of them are good and some of them are amazing. Cartoon guides to all of these sorts of things. So his 3-book series, The Cartoon History of the Universe, starts at the Big Bang. It's a big history approach. That's the first one. This is the third one. The second one is red. And then here we go. Nope, not that one. The other one. Doesn't matter. And then he has his modern world ones, which are the final 2. This one and then that red one. These are great. I recommend them so much. They would be amazing even if they weren't cleverly drawn cartoons. I wonder if I click on this, will I get some of the cartoons? No, frequently with cartoon stuff, you don't actually. Oh, we're gonna be lucky. We're gonna be lucky. Yeah, okay. Probably breaking some important kind of copyright right here. Tells the stories. Even if these weren't done as comics, these would be some of the best world history books that I had ever read. I read a lot of world history books. The way that he focuses on some things and not others is frankly just a better way of teaching world history than most other things. Just for example, growing up, Western history was privileged, which frankly, I think there's a really strong historical argument for. The Western world, it turns out, conquered the rest of the world and made the rest of the world kind of Western. So it's important to understand the Western world more than it is other places. You can't understand the present day unless you understand that. But then that is taken to spots that are ludicrous. Like, to understand anything about England in the Middle Ages, no one needs to understand that unless you're English. It's not an important place. It's like the least important place in the world in the Middle Ages. To understand the Arab world, to understand the Chinese world, to understand the Indian world, these are really, really important. And he focuses on the most important thing. So I'll just throw that one out as a place to start with that. Feel free to shoot any questions my way if you're interested in more about that. I used to do this thing called dueling histories that we can talk about if you're interested. Are the close reading classes an additional cost? Yeah, they're done totally. Okay, sorry. So are the close reading courses an additional cost to the science classes? Yeah, they're totally different things. If you go to grab a seat, click on close reading. The reading comics by itself class is $185. That's not per month. That's just like for, this one is September through December. They're fairly cheap, actually, if you break it down by week there. We should have done that by month. Oops. And then if you do the arguing and reading comics class, that is more expensive, but it does include the other one on top of there. Excellent question. We also do some fun things, like we have a poetry curriculum that I've made. I don't know. I never talk about this. I don't know. I like it, though. I like it. I'm happy with the way that thing turned out. Maybe in the future we'll do more of those. What curriculums, that you all use for other subjects as well. If anyone is interested in sticking around to the very end of this, and I can just ask that question, and people can share those curricula that you really love, I'd be delighted to have this be a center for that. Ooh, this is so good. Thank you, Denise. Is the Philosophers Club also available to the children who do the webinar? So will they have the chance to be part of the Philosophers Club when they only do the webinar? Yes, absolutely. Now, the one situation that it would be criminal to not do that. The one situation that it will not be available for is if you, Science Bites, if you are getting any of our past courses, then, we're not going to go back and redo all the Philosophers Club weeks. These are from, the last 2 years, I guess, of actually what we've been teaching. Yeah, it's a lot of topics, isn't it? Yeah. We will probably be taking these ones off of the store as we get into redoing the new courses, because frankly, I don't want people, I guess I haven't made up my mind about that. So just know that as we teach each of these things, the webinar recordings we put on the website for anyone, from then until the sun burns out, to download and watch. But then they will not be able to participate in the Philosophers Club for that. Great question. Oh, can kids switch between the webinar and the seminar? Absolutely. The limiting factor there is that usually our seminars sell out. We have not sold out of 3 of the 4 seminars yet. The Monday morning one is filled up, I believe. Yeah. But there's still room in the other ones. Now, if you are then trying to switch back and forth, it may be that the seminar fills up. So that could be a difficulty. But, we will try to work with you to make that work for you. Can kids start the program later? We have 4 kids between the ages of 3 and 9, so the 6-year-old might not have the patience in the beginning or the ability in the beginning to retain all the information at first, but will be more ready in the coming years. Will he be able to catch up? Fantastic question. The answer to that, as someone who aspires to the ideals of rationalism, I like to make sure that I only say things that I am positive can be supported by evidence. And so if I'm faltering here, it's because we have not literally done this yet and proven that this can happen. But yeah, we're designing this can be done. The challenge with this is going to be, and it's not just younger kids that we want to be able to catch up, but anybody who finds out about our program, in 2 or 3 years, will, I guess I want to do everything. to get this. Say you come in only in the year 2026, so we're all starting the sun and all the live lessons are on the sun. So first of all, you could literally just start with the sun. That would be okay. You wouldn't understand everything, but you could start with that. We, won't slow down for you, but that is a thing that you could do. We will be making, and we haven't made any of these yet, but the way that I envision these is as a quick kind of previously. Science is Weird, little document or a video or something like that, where before, guts, I talk a little bit about, okay, like here's what we learned in lungs that's going to be relevant here. And here's what we learned in mouths and in dirt and in apples and in bacteria and in evolution that is going to be useful here, to just kind of give a quick overview to help catch people up. So we will be making those. Okay, so that said, if what you want to do is then, let's say that like it's to the year 2026, a llama is the president of the United States. Aliens have finally made contact, and you want to start Science is Weird. Well, okay, the place that I recommend that you start is with the universe, especially because in the universe, we are going to, if you notice there's something about all of our topics, it's that all of them are boring, small topics, right? Like, okay, volcanoes is not boring, but dirt is, and soap is, and onions are. The interesting trick of teaching science is that the more boring the topic seems, the more interesting it actually is going to be. And the universe totally belies, runs athwart all of that. That's because it's important that if we're going to have this entire conversation about life, the universe, and everything, that we just start by defining what we know about the boundaries of reality. Oh, I didn't even say that the final class is not going to be as it appears here, crows. All of these really do go in order. Nuclear power, then batteries, then sleep. With one exception, we're swapping crows and aliens. The entire thing is going to be building toward aliens because it turns out that xenobiology is a flourishing discipline. We have not found aliens yet. We do have some ideas as to what aliens might or might not be able to even look like. We'll talk about some of the biggest questions in biology, in zoology, in philosophy, and consciousness, and use aliens as our way of talking about all those things. So aliens is in some ways the target of all of these things. Why am I talking about this? What am I talking about? Let's say that at the year is 2026, llamas, etc., and you want to start at the universe is weird, but you're worried, oh my gosh, if I just go like at the usual pace, then I won't be able to catch up for all of this. Well, yeah, but remember that the deep dives are totally optional. If you want, you could do like a lesson, a video lesson per day and go at, 7 times the speed that people would usually go at for this. More than one lesson a day is too much. Your brain would melt or something terrible. But you could easily do like 2 a week or 3 a week or 4 a week or something like that, 5 a week if you want to do one every weekday. And then not do the deep dives at all. But you'd have done them really fast and things would connect together and be really cool. And you could totally catch up by doing that. Excellent question. Whew! Did I think that I would be here now? Willie, what do you mean by that question? In Rochester, Minnesota? In a basement that I have painted to look really cool. The painting part isn't the really cool part. It's the stuff that we have there. Really cool. Teaching science. No, I never expected that I'd be teaching science. I did really like dinosaurs when I was a kid. I was all about the dinosaurs. I cut my teeth, my intellectual teeth on like actually understanding the age of the earth and understanding evolution. Like I went through like fights like in myself and with other people. It was very exciting. So there was that kind, and I was also really into like the Loch Ness Monster and the Abominable Snowman, the Yeti. I was super into those, slightly less into Bigfoot. Seems like a boring sort of version of the Yeti. Ghosts And I actually kind of got into science, like the question of like, what is real, from those sorts of things. So if you told me that if you would have told me 10 years ago that I'd be teaching a science course, I'd say, no, it's the one thing that I didn't know, that I have no idea about, that I've never had any kind of professional training in. I'd be very surprised by that. Unless you told me that I'd be talking about dinosaurs or the abominable snowman, which it turns out we actually don't even talk that much about dinosaurs. I put them in whenever I can. I can recommend some really good dinosaur books to you, though. I do keep abreast of dinosaur research. Will we offer the reading classes annually? Yeah, probably. Maybe. There's a whole other aspect to Science is Weird that I'm not going to talk about right now. But it's our answer to the question of what do we most want to bring into the world? Even above and beyond this 6-year science curriculum that, anybody in the world will be able to get until the sun burns out. What is the most important thing that we could possibly be doing? And we have an answer to that. And I'm not going to touch on it right now because if I started talking about it, I wouldn't be able to shut up about it. Suffice to say, if you're on our mailing list, you will be hearing about it. And frankly, you'll probably be hearing about it in the next month at least. Yeah. So that is going to probably be taking a greater and greater share of my time, which is already too limited. So it's conceivable that we won't continue with that. That said, the comics close reading classes are one of the most enjoyable parts of my week and are so easy to teach. I just love them. And kids oftentimes just flip for those. Do you know that the thing, like, one of the coolest things I've ever heard, just like we sometimes use Calvin and Hobbes as our text, just because Calvin and Hobbes is like how I learned to read and be an intellectual, just by reading Calvin and Hobbes. Had a mom tell us that her son could never read Calvin and Hobbes. He always get really angry at it because he wouldn't understand just a lot of the words, because Calvin and Hobbes has a like SAT, college, sometimes literal graduate level vocabulary. Not even to get into the subtleties of meaning that are required to understand exactly what's going on in some of the jokes. Also, there are poop jokes and booger jokes too. So real contains multitudes. And that by using the materials that we have made as part of our close reading comics class, that her son has learned to love reading Calvin and Hobbes. So excited about that. So I feel like we're bringing a lot of value into the world if we're getting people to, love Calvin and Hobbes and other comic strips we had in the future too. What's the maximum number of kids that I'll accept in the webinar class? That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. The numbers, because we've never hit more than 50. At like 40, 35, 40, what we do sort of becomes challenging because there's just too many texts. So we then will need to shift to using some different methods for having kids chat things in and have it just be more simple. But I'm happy to do that, happy and willing to do that. My hunch is that we can make it to 100 kids in the live webinar. That's my hunch on that, but we'll be crossing that. When it gets too big, I will then cap it. And then in future years, we will be, limiting what we do with that. I'll make sure that we keep the quality up with that. How long are the recordings available for? Is it something my child will be able to revisit in a year or two if they forget some of what they previously learned? I mean, the current understanding from astronomers is that the sun will expand in about 1 billion years to be, okay, am I getting this right? In 1 billion years, the sun will, it's either 1 billion or 2 billion years, the sun will get a bit bigger and it will make life on Earth unlivable unless we can push the Earth back a bit from the sun, which, I'm betting we can do. But then the sun will actually only burn out in about 5 billion years. And it turns out that actually what it means by burn out is a really interesting thing. It'll go for a lot longer after that. But let's just call it 5 billion years. That's my answer to your question. About 5 billion years. When did I start doing... When I started doing Science is Weird, did I think that I would be here now? I think that the initial excitement that we got from doing Science is Weird, just that very first Water is Weird class. Water is Weird actually predates Science is Weird. we were we were about to move cross country. We had planned that even before COVID, from Seattle to Rochester, Minnesota. And the plan had been that I was going to, actually, I already had opened my own test prep company, which I'd had a couple test prep companies with other people or whatever before, but one that's just for me, that was just for students who have ADHD, which I've now totally shuttered. But that was the plan. I spent like 2 years before we moved building that up so I could financially support my family in the move across the country. And then as soon as we started, I don't know, maybe 3 days into the first Science is Weird class, it was just so exciting. And I realized that I loved teaching online more than I loved teaching in person. So I think it's maybe 3 days into teaching Science is Weird that I thought, yeah, like I think if I can do this, I would love to be able to do this. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. Do I have anything else to say? Oh, there's one thing, and maybe this is somewhere on the website. The seminar subscriptions. Oh, I think there's actually an important page. How about that? I remembered something. If you go to sciencesweird.com/discounts, there are some other things that are on here. We like to serve families with big families. We have 3 kids. My wife and I have 3 kids ourselves. Every kid in the seminars after the first gets $40 off. And the webinar signups are actually free for more than one. Sorry, let me say that again. That's a terrible way of saying that. If you sign up for the webinar, you're signing up for your entire family. So you don't need to get more than one of those. If you run a learning pod, are those still a thing? Or a school, we actually contract with some schools to do to be their science curriculum. If you are in that situation or know somebody who's in that situation, like, love to talk to you about that. And yeah, and various other things that we've talked about. Okay. Yeah, 35 minutes after. That's actually kind of par for the course in these non-class things. My apologies. Everyone, thank you tremendously much for coming.